You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
Mile high, hello everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into a fresh episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. My name is Lance Sanderson, and joining me as always is my good friend, Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst and your Denver Broncos insider, Erick Trickel. Erick, what's going on, my dude? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm just really bummed that it's towards the end of November and there is no snow on the ground. I really wish there was snow. But anyways, besides that, I've actually been really great. My favorite holiday's coming up, and I'm not talking about Thanksgiving. But I really like Christmas, and it isn't just about the presents or anything like that. It's just what it means to me with my family and everything like that. So I've been spending the last couple days getting everything up and decorated. Our tree's already up, and what Christmas presents we've already bought and they're already wrapped and underneath the tree. Just super excited about it. And part of why I like Christmas so much is the build up to it. And so just super excited for it already. But other than that, I'm great. And it's just trying to get through the rest of the season with the Broncos, and it's going. I mean, if they win, they win. They lose is my kind of philosophy anymore with it. And just being a draft analyst, basically it just, whatever happens, I still have draft prospects to watch. So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I totally cannot relate with you on pretty much anything that you had just said, other than being a pseudo draft analyst. Like I'll get started going here directly probably in the next couple of weeks, but there is currently at least 6 inches of snow on the ground here in Wyoming, and the entire state is pretty much under attack right now by this massive snowstorm going down into Colorado. Unfortunately, my favorite holiday is Thanksgiving, and with the snow and everything like that, I'm going to be unable to travel to go and be with my family. So I will end up having to be with my girlfriend and her family. My family lives 3.5 hours away from where I'm at, so I'm not going to be able to make that trek. You know, they're supposed to get another probably 6 to 8 inches over the next couple of days, and just travel is too risky at that point. As far as decorating for Christmas before Thanksgiving even hits, boo! Stop it! You're absolute nonsense right now.
I hate Thanksgiving. To me, it is the worst holiday. I've never liked it. I'm not a big fan of turkey as it is. So, I just, Thanksgiving's not big for me. I still spend it with my family and everything like that, but to me, it's just about family. And I spend time with my family every single day, so there's nothing special to me with Thanksgiving, so.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. That's totally fair. With me in my situation, living as far as I do away from my parents, I really don't get to see them nearly as often. You know, so the hunting trips that I've taken and going down last weekend to take my girlfriend to meet them for the first time, like those are special things to me. And to end up having to miss out on Thanksgiving, which is, like I said, is my favorite holiday. It really is just kind of a bummer, you know. And it is what it is. I mean, now I get to maybe start this next chapter in my life, and hopefully, you know, me and Samantha keep moving forward and everything like that. So, and I mean, it's good to get to know her parents and her boys just a little bit more. So, it is what it is. I take it with a grain of salt, and hopefully everything just kind of works out. But anyways, enough of the small talk. Today, guys, on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast, we're gonna break down a guy that everybody knows and loves. He wears that number 58 on the middle of his chest. He is the one and only Vaughn Miller, arguably the best edge defender in all of football, just depending on what your flavor is personally. You know, I think he's probably the best pass rusher in the NFL, but this year it's just been kind of different with him, and we're not exactly sure why. Analytically speaking, he's having a great year, but statistically speaking, it's not really showing up in the ways that we thought it was with Vic Fangio. So after that, we're going to break down Malik Reed, Jeremiah Tauchu, Justin Hollins just a little bit.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, now with Vaughn Miller, the thing that I have is like the biggest takeaway with me for Vaughn Miller is the fact that when Vic Fangio was hired as the head coach of the Denver Broncos earlier this offseason, the one thing that everyone was really kind of touting was the effectiveness that Vic Fangio was going to have on his game as a whole. And Vic didn't really mince words with Von Miller, and he did say that Von Miller could be extremely better of a player than he was, in not so many words as that, but he did say Von Miller could also be better than the Von Miller that we've already seen. And this year with Von Miller, we're not really seeing that. And to me, it's a couple of things, but Eric, I want your opinion on this more than mine. What is probably the biggest reason as to why Von Miller is not getting the sack numbers that we're accustomed to seeing with him every single year?
Well, I think the biggest reason is that they're just scheming him out. They're doubling and tripling him just about every single play, and then quarterbacks are just getting the ball out quicker. We saw it against the Green Bay Packers, I think it was, with Aaron Rodgers, where Von Miller was getting pretty consistent pressure against him, but if Aaron Rodgers, with his mobility, he'd be able to escape, get out of the pocket, and if he wasn't able to pick up yards with his legs, he would just throw it away or find somebody open. Just not being able to get home. I mean, it's not all on just Von Miller. There's so many things as opposing offenses and offensive linemen and quarterbacks that they can do to just basically keep the edge rusher out of the play. And so they're just dealing with that. And, I mean, it's not great. It's not what he's paid for. But the fact of the matter is he's still tied 12th in the NFL with sacks with 4 other players. And one of them is Khalil Mack, who we saw tear it up with the Bears last year under Vic Fangio. And Von Miller's only played 317 snaps, pass rushing snaps. Only 317 with seven sacks. That is the second fewest of all the qualifying edge rushers that I'm looking at here on Pro Football Focus. I mean, he's tied with Terrell Suggs, who has 318. So one more snap, same amount of sacks, but far less pressures. He's tied third with total hurries with 42, which is 3 more than which is 3 more than Khalil Mack's 39. He's got 5 hits. He's not finishing like we hoped, but he's still having a pretty good year and still doing what he needs to do. So part of it too, I think, with this is that Denver got off to a slow start with this defense, and part of that, and the reason behind that, is Vic Fangio was still installing his new scheme. There were some issues on the back end that was allowing people to get open. Players weren't quite fully adapted to the scheme yet. So we saw those issues with the first 4 weeks, and after that point, those first 3 weeks in particular. But after that, we saw the scheme kind of really get installed, and we saw everybody's play step up, including Von Miller's. And for all the crap that he gets, too, as a pass rusher, Von Miller has been really good as a run defender this year.
Yeah, he has. And just to kind of elaborate a little bit more with Von Miller and the Pro Football Focus advanced analytics that we have at our fingertips here, just the thing that gets me is I have it shrank down to 80% of 394 snaps. We're talking guys that play a lot, and they do have a lot of the pass rush snaps and everything like that. As far as a pass rush productivity statistic, it's an advanced analytic that Pro Football Focus does. It's a formula that combines sacks, hits, and hurries relative to how many times they rush the passer. Von Miller is ranked number 5 in the NFL among players that have 80% of at least 394 total pass rush snaps, with 9.6%. 9.6% doesn't necessarily that doesn't really seem like a big number, but when you consider you've got Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter, T.J. Watt, and Joey Bosa above them, and they have respectively 11, 9, 13, and 9 total sacks on their seasons. Like, Von Miller is actually still getting after the quarterback, and he may not be getting guys down to the ground, but the effectiveness of Von Miller doesn't necessarily have to be as far as getting the quarterback to the ground. He is very good against the run this year. He's ranked number 11 in the NFL with a tackling efficiency of 10.7, and he's doing a very good job with a run stop percentage of 5.7%. And their stop percentage is technically it's a play that's running for less than 3 yards, more or less. It's where a tackle is made. It's a negative play for the offense, and at 5.7% of all of his total tackles, that's a pretty decent statistic for Von Miller. It's just the amount of double teams and triple teams that he's seeing, the chips coming off the edge, and we always know that Von Miller is getting held, and they're never actually going to throw a flag. But the biggest thing to me, as far as not being able to get home on a more consistent basis, 7 sacks through 11 games, that's not a very good pace for him. The biggest thing to me is, and Chad Jensen and Zach Kelberman broke it down on Monday night on the Huddle Up podcast, sometimes, a superhero does need his sidekick. Sometimes a Batman does really need a Robin. And losing Bradley Chubb early in the season with a torn ACL and then inserting Malik Reed into the role, like that's a big loss, not only for the Broncos defense, but for the effectiveness of Von Miller, So when you look at with Von Miller over the course of his career, he played with Elvis Dumervil, who was getting double-digit sacks. He played with Sean Phillips in 2013. There's a caveat to that. Von Miller did not actually play the full season. He went down with a torn ACL and was suspended for using ecstasy or Molly or whatever the hell it was. But I mean, every single year he's had a guy that has been pushing towards the double-digit sacks, and with Malik Reed and as well as he has been playing, he's definitely not a Bradley Chubb. Now, Eric, is there anything more than that? I mean, what else could there possibly be? I mean, we're talking Von Miller is age 30 season, and that's kind of the benchmark, Players fear that age 30 season. They don't like to get over the age of 30 because that's when the decline does actually start. Is that maybe something that you have to take into consideration as well?
Of course it is. I mean, there's so many factors into it. I mean, yes, not having Bradley Chubb does hurt. Like, it hurts a lot. Whereas in these other games where Von Miller is able to generate the pressure on the quarterback and they're able to escape, he doesn't have Bradley Chubb on the other side generating that pressure that's keeping that side contained to where the quarterback can't escape to that side. Age is part of it. I'm sure the new scheme plays a part of it. But here's some interesting stuff for you when you're looking at it. Through the first 12 games, Von Miller only has 7 sacks. Well, in 2016, he had only 14 sacks on the season. All 14 of them came in the first 12 games, so he was missing for the last 4 games of that season, basically. For those fans that want to say that sacks are the only way for him to have his impact felt, he was missing those last 4 games. In 2017, 9 of his 10 total sacks came in the first 12 games. In 2018, 12 of his 16 total sacks came in the first 12 games. So really, he is a little bit behind the pace he has set over the last few years, but he's not super far behind like he has been outside of the 2016 season where every single sack came in, including I think it was like a 4-sack game against Indianapolis week 2. So he's I don't want to say he's on pace with his previous years because he's not, but he's not as far off of it, and that's to expected. I mean, in those other years, Von Miller had great pass rushers with him to help generate pressure on the quarterback. DeMarcus Ware was there for a couple of those seasons. I mean, Shane Ray, granted he wasn't a great player by any means, but he was beneficial. Denver had players in the interior to help generate pressure with Malik Jackson. I mean, there's other factors into this, and basically, I mean, with the loss of Bradley Chubb, there just isn't the talent up front really to provide the help necessary for Von Miller to get that pressure. And there's definitely this is the biggest reason to me. It's not the matter of the scheme. It's not having Chubb. The biggest issue is not having the players in the secondary. If you want sacks, you have to force the quarterback to hold the ball. The secondary is giving up early separation. They're allowing these quick passes, and part of that is the scheme with playing off coverage so much that it makes it easier for the quarterback. So there's so many factors into it that it's not all on Von. And I mean, his age, I'm sure part of it's a factor, but I don't think it's as a real big factor. Not yet, anyways. I think it's just a matter of the scheme and the lack of talent around him, especially now with Bradley Chubb hurt and the issue that has consistently been the secondary.
Yeah, and with regards to the secondary, and I think a lot of this has to do with, and it is a lot of the scheme issues that we're seeing with Vic Fangio, and I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems to me, and I'm not going to put an exact percentage, but we'll just say roughly 65% of the time that the Broncos defense actually gets a team behind the sticks in a 3rd and long situation, the Broncos are only rushing 3 players, sometimes 4. They're dropping 7 or 8 guys into coverage, and they're playing the heavy zone scheme, and they're not actually dialing up the pressure and creating pressure through the scheme itself. And now, not that that's something that Von Miller needs to have. He's more than capable of being able to create pressure by himself. But when you're only rushing 3, you're already allowing him to be double teamed. Just in and of itself, you're already allowing him to be double teamed by the right tackle and the right guard, or the left tackle and the left guard, or a tight end, or a chip coming off. You're already allowing that by not bringing a pressure scheme on an obvious down and distance where it's going to be a passing situation. that is failing to use your players in the right way. And, I've been vocal about it as far as the Rich Scangarello side of things with the offense, but with the defense, you're seeing it as well in certain situations. Now, Justin Simmons is playing his life away. He's going to turn out to be, double-digit $1 million safety coming up after the season. But with Von Miller, and you've got guys, Derek Wolfe, who's been playing a lot better. Shelby Harris has been playing significantly better over the last couple weeks. But, you've got some guys that can actually generate their own kind of a pass rush, but they also need to have the scheme beneficial to actually having them be able to do that, to where they can actually pin their ears back and they're not, rushing against 2 and 3 guys every time when it's 3rd and 14. We saw it a couple times against the Buffalo Bills, and then Josh Allen just said, you know what, to hell with it. I'm just going to run the football. We'll run for 14 yards on 3rd and 13 and keep the drive going. It happened a couple of times. It's happened multiple times over this season. Now, to kind of round this off before we hit our first break, Eric, is there another answer than that?
Well, with Vic Fangio, it has always been known, we saw it with the Bears, we saw it with the 49ers, that he tries to win with as few pass rushers as possible. And Denver isn't able to help him out because they don't have the talent in the secondary, so he kind of needs those extra he kind of needs those extra coverage guys, so he's not able to fully blitz all the time or blitz consistently or rush 3 or not rush 3 or 4 guys on 3rd and long situations, just because the few times he has, especially early on in the season, Denver got burned because the coverage guys couldn't hold up. So, while it would be nice to see him do it a little bit more often, and I think that the criticism of him is very fair, I think that it's just all these other issues with it, just with Von Miller's play, the issues with the coverage are kind of forcing his hand a little bit with it. So, that's just kind of my take on it. Criticism is more than fair. I criticized Vic Fangio. I've criticized Rick Scangarello. I've criticized everybody within the Broncos organization because criticism is always fair, especially with a team that has only 3 wins at week 12 of the season. It's always more than fair, and Vic Fangio does deserve criticism. But again, if this continues going on when the Broncos do have better talent in the secondary, like perhaps next year, then I think the criticism is even more, not necessarily even more fair, but I think it is even more, there's even more to it, would be the way to put it.
Yeah, there's always more to it. It's not just the on Von Miller is not being good. The cover scheme back behind. There's just a myriad of situations, and it's unfortunate, but at the same time, that's what you get. Von Miller's not playing as effectively as he has been for a myriad of reasons.
And for one last quick point of this, so last year, the comparison has been always Khalil Mack. What Khalil Mack did with the Bears defense under Vic Fangio, which is a fair comparison to top pass rushers. Khalil Mack ended up with 13 sacks in 14 games. That's actually really good. That's averaging just about 1 sack per game. So that's really good, whereas Von Miller only has 7 in 12 games. Meanwhile, in other stats, Khalil Mack had 9 hits, Von Miller only has 5, but Khalil Mack in his 14 games was at 51, Von Miller in his 12 is 9 less. So they're very close in those stats, statistical-wise, outside of sacks. And I think that, and again, to highlight the point of, I think that coverage is a bigger issue with it, is that the corners and safeties of the Bears last year were great. It was one of the best secondaries in the NFL last year. They allowed Khalil Mack to really go after the quarterback because they forced quarterbacks to hold the ball.
And they were very opportunistic with the opportunities.
Yes.
They capitalized on all of the opportunities they had to take the football away, which is another issue with this Broncos defense as well. But anyways, guys, we're going to have to take a quick break here really fast. But before we do, I just want to remind you all to head on over to milehighhuddle.com to check out all of our written content on your Denver Broncos. At the Huddle website, you'll get breaking news, analysis, and opinion articles, as well as in-depth film breakdowns of not only Broncos players, but matchups to watch in an upcoming game or even our top-notch NFL draft coverage. Also, make sure you take a couple minutes to create your own personalized profile and hit up the comment section to voice your opinions on any topics that you agree or disagree with. It's completely free, it's easy to use, and we all love to discuss Broncos football with our readers. You can also sit in with us during the live game thread to talk your thoughts on how the team is performing as well. So with that, we got to step away for a few minutes. We'll be right back. Sit tight.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Dove Valley Deep Divers. We kind of took a look at the issues that we're seeing with Von Miller this year. Not necessarily that there are a lot of issues. He's still being effective, just in a different way than what we're used to actually seeing. And he has been. We didn't really break down just the effectiveness that he does have in the running game, because he has been spectacular in the running game. But it's kind of time to move forward with this thinking just a little bit, and we're going to evaluate the rest of the edge defenders that we have. And obviously with Bradley Chubb being out, you're seeing a lot of Malik Reed, and Malik Reed has been playing admirably for what he is, and that is a undrafted rookie free agent that it was forced into a starting role because of injury. And now that's kind of unfair for me to say, but it is also fair. I mean, we're talking, he's got 2 sacks, 3 hits, 13 hurries, and 18 total pressures on 186 snaps, pass rush snaps this year. And that's probably a big reason as to why Von Miller is not being effective, is because Malik Reed is not being able to generate consistent pressure on the other side. And it's not necessarily frustrating, because you see a young guy like this, and obviously undrafted, doesn't necessarily have the high draft pedigree, but with Malik Reed, there's no doubt in anybody's mind he's not the same kind of a player that Bradley Chubb is, and that's another issue with how Von Miller has not been able to be effective this year. Now, Eric, what's a big reason as to why Malik Reed cannot be as effective as what he should be?
Part of it is the strength. I was a huge fan of Malik Reed coming out. I actually discovered him about a year ago, and I remember talking to him about Nick. I was like, "Hey, Nick, you got to watch this Nevada kid, this Nevada edge rusher. He's pretty versatile. He can drop back into coverage a little bit. Very good athlete. Lacks the strength. Not going to hold up at the NFL in run defense." And we've kind of seen that from him this year, and it's been very problematic for him. I mean, the NFL game is such a difference from the college game, and the strength and the athleticism, it's all heightened. And so Malik Reed, while he is a good athlete, and he's a good athlete for NFL levels, he just doesn't have the strength to hold up against some of these tackles, and that's been his biggest case. Is they've just been really bullying him and pushing him around a little bit, and it's just affected him. I mean, when you're not that strong, it's going to be problematic in the NFL. I mean, he's got to put some time in the weight room after this year. He's got to work on bulking up and adding some extra power to his game. I mean, he's got some good technique. He's got some good pass rush moves, but it's all for naught if you don't have the strength to at least hold up and hold your own, to where if a tackle is getting their hands on you, that you're not being shut down, which is the case with Malik Reed. He has done a good job. There have been some great flashes, but he hasn't looked like some excellent undrafted free agent gem like a lot of people have hyped him up to be, especially in recent weeks. He's really disappeared. I mean, the first probably about 3 or 4 weeks of the season, where after he took over for Bradley Chubb as a starter, he was actually playing really great football, and it just fell off, and it happens. I mean, he's a rookie, and this kind of falls on Vic Fangio, as they got to find ways to help keep him effective, to try and help make Von Miller more effective, and there's some blame that falls there. But yeah, it's just basically, it just comes down to he's a rookie, he's still learning the NFL game, he's still adapting to the NFL game, and the biggest thing that he's got to adapt to is the strength.
Yeah, and you and I had a kind of an interesting conversation over our personal group chat the other day, and we kind of butted heads just a little bit, and it was specifically over me saying that he was not a Bradley Chubb level player, but just the effectiveness that he has had in the running game, and he has been fairly decent in stopping the run, but I mean, when you see him get upfield, he doesn't have and as you said, he doesn't have the strength to anchor, and he can't force guys to turn back inside of him. So when he does get up the field and he gets his shoulders turned and is trying to fight back towards the inside and then make the play, that's the plays that I'm talking about, where you're not seeing with Malik Reed, where you do see with Bradley Chubb. He has the strength to anchor, set himself up, shed the block, and then make the play from the backside. And Malik Reed, when he does make plays, it's more typically because his quick jump off the snap, and he's knifing through and he's making plays in the backfield. But with Malik Reed, as far as the pass rush, I mean, there's still a lot of refinement with the young man. And I mean, if you want to talk about just a guy that is now really coming into his own in the NFL, and Shaquille Barrett, Malik Reed has a very similar kind of a career arc if you look at him the way that he's playing right now. Effective against the run, not necessarily getting after it huge in the passing game, but you're seeing the flashes that actually kind of give him the credit to where, you know, he could be a solid rotational pass rusher for the Broncos moving forward. And I mean, sure, you know, he's not playing the greatest of football as of right now, but that game against the very first game that he started against the Los Angeles Chargers, I believe it was week 5, he absolutely lit it up. It was an amazing, amazing performance by Malik Reed, and that's more specifically what I'm talking about. Is you see the big positive flashes from the guy, and it does kind of give you a little bit of promise. You know, give him another couple of years, maybe help get him working with Bill Kolar a little bit more as a defensive line coach, not necessarily as like an interior player, obviously, because he's so small, but like get him working with Von Miller, get him working with Bradley Chubb, and maybe he could actually be a solid third guy. Now, outside of Malik Reed, there's really not a whole lot going on with the Broncos as far as the rotational pass rush. And a guy that I was really kind of impressed with against the Buffalo Bills was Jeremiah Tauchu. And he's only been with the Broncos for, you know, a handful of weeks now. But just, Eric, you had him as one of your very few positive grades in your player grades piece earlier this week. What kind of spoke out to Jeremiah Tauchu's game against the Buffalo Bills?
Well, big part of it was just his ability to read and react. He was very quick reading the play, diagnosing the play, and then properly reacting to blow it up. He had 4 stops in the game, which constituted as a loss for the offense in some form or in some way or another. I mean, he's averaging 1 stop per 22 snaps overall, and for his run snaps, he's averaging 1 stop every 10.5 run snaps. He's played 312 less snaps than Malik Reed and has only 6 less stops. I mean, if we sat there and did all the math and everything like that, it means that if we equalized their snap count and everything, then very obviously Jeremiah Tauchu is going to have more run stops than Malik Reed is. He is the better run defender, and he's shown quite a bit as a pass rusher against the Bills as well. Again, it was very quick. He was keeping offensive linemen's hands off of him, and he was getting upfield. And Ahmad Gooden, he also kind of had not many, but he had a couple plays that really stepped up and showed what his potential and everything. And before I continue on, I just got to throw this disclaimer out there is that Denver wanted Shaquille Barrett back, but Shaquille Barrett bet on himself. He took not very much money from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they were giving him a chance to start. That is the reason why Shaquille Barrett is not in the Broncos uniform this year. It isn't because of John Elway didn't want him. It's not because they wouldn't pony up the money. I mean, he's $4 million this year plus whatever bonuses he's hit. He wanted the chance to start, and he wasn't going to get that with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. But anyways, back to Tauchu. He's just been playing really good. I mean, I like what he's shown. I kind of liked him coming out of college, too. I can remember scouting him and everything, and he's very similar to that player he was. I mean, there's been a little bit more development. The technique is a little bit cleaned up. He's not just relying on athleticism. And I think that Denver, if they keep working with him and everything and bring him back, I think that he can fit into this Broncos pass rusher room as part of the rotation, either as the third guy while they continue to groom Malik Reed, or as the fourth guy if Malik Reed steps it up. And then they can sit there and work with Justin Hollins as playing that versatile role that they really want him to be, that cover linebacker, because he has the athleticism for it, though his times there this year have really been struggled. But, again, he's a rookie adapting to the NFL game. So they definitely have their options going forward, and Tauchu stepping up is just helping those options with what the Broncos want to do or can do going forward.
Yeah, and with Tauchu, that's just a great in-season pickup by John Elway. It really is. The one big play that I do want to kind of point out with Jeremiah Tauchu was, and it has nothing to do with the defensive side of the football, it was on special teams. He ran down and made a huge special teams tackle, and when he came up, he was fired up. And at that particular point, I can't remember if it was in the second or the third quarter, at that particular point, it stuck out to me that Jeremiah Tauchu was having the best game of his season this year, and there's no question about it. He was spectacular against the Bills. And now, kind of moving forward just a little bit to Justin Hollins and everything, you are seeing the rookie struggles with him and trying to learn two different positions, and the mental fortitude with him, and having to learn, obviously how to be the edge rusher at times, having to be an off-ball linebacker, learn how to cover and everything like that. You are seeing a lot of the struggles with him, but he hasn't really been seeing a whole lot of the field very much. I mean, we're talking, he has 119 total snaps this year. So there's not really a whole lot to kind of discuss about Justin Hollins other than, I mean, you're seeing a little bit of progress with him. He has struggled at times in coverage, and he does create a pressure every now and again, but I mean, for a fifth round pick this last year, you're not really expecting a whole lot, but I was kind of expecting a lot more out of Justin Hollins. I did a big film breakdown of him right after the draft, and I was super excited to, see him in coverage and everything like that when he was back at Oregon, but it's just, we're not seeing it right now. And you got to just kind of be patient with the kid. Let him, get his chops. Let him figure everything out and figure out his niche role, because he is playing in a literal niche role as a rotational pass rusher and as a rotational coverage linebacker. But guys, we're getting a little bit long. We're going to have to take another quick break. On the other side, we're going to break down one big take from Erick Trickel that I've seen a lot of blowback from, and I really kind of want to go head-to-head with him on this one. So guys, we'll be right back.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
All right, guys, welcome back to Dove Valley Deep Divers. We're talking about the pass rush specifically, and obviously Von Miller, Malik Reed, and there's kind of a big scenario with the Broncos right now. Currently, they sit with the number 5 overall pick in the NFL draft, and you're talking premium quarterback, premium left tackle, but there's also the one guy, and his name is Chase Young, number 2, the Ohio State. He is the best player in college football this year, and as a pass rusher, to be considered as a Heisman Trophy finalist already, we're talking some pretty lofty territory here. And with the Broncos already having Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, this is a discussion that needs to kind of happen. And Eric, I want your thoughts. If the Broncos have an opportunity, say the draft were tomorrow, and the Broncos had the number 5 overall pick, and Chase Young was on the board, would you pull the trigger?
Yes, you have to. Pass rushers are so valuable. They're one of the most important positions in the NFL on any roster. You have to have it. And then you have to consider the fact that Bradley Chubb's injury, he's going to be coming back from that. You have Von Miller and his age and his contract situation with how much money he's getting made. And you have to balance that out with the performance he's had this year, which, as we were talking about earlier in the show, is better than what a lot of people are thinking is, but still not quite as good as he's getting paid for. So you have to. I mean, you have to rush up to the podium to basically make that pick. Because the simple fact is if you're able to get him, that opens the option of trading Von Miller, which can bring back some good picks in return. Even if you don't want to trade Von Miller, then you have 3 outstanding pass rushers to really dial up the pressure and create some very, very creative NASCAR packages. I mean, and then you have 2 cost-controlled guys for a few more years. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many positive things with making that pick. Not to mention the fact that he is the best pass rusher, in my opinion, come out of in the NFL draft since Von Miller. And we're talking about prospects here, so this is what they looked like in college entering the NFL. A lot of people like to confuse that and compare their NFL careers. We're not talking about their NFL careers because we don't know what Chase Young's going to be. But in terms of just being a pure draft prospect, he is the best one since Von Miller. And honestly, I could see people saying he is even better as a draft prospect than Von Miller, and I would be hard to argue with that. Chase Young is that good. I mean, people don't realize just how good he is. I mean, Ohio State's defense, they played very well without him out on the field, but it is a whole different animal when he is out there. Such a good player. Edge is so important that you'd have to take him. I mean, I understand there's other needs and everything like that, but the value of adding another young pass rusher, especially with the capabilities of Chase Young, it's invaluable. It really is.
Absolutely it is. And just to kind of give you guys an idea of the kind of player that Chase Young is, if you don't already actually know who this kid is, and it's kind of crazy because he missed a couple of games this year with an odd suspension. We talked about it a couple weeks ago on DVDD, but coming out last week against the Penn State Nittany Lions, ranked number 8 in the AP poll, Chase Young had 3 sacks and 4 tackles for loss in a huge game Absolutely gigantic game. He had 9 tackles as well. And it's not an unprecedented move, not only in like the NFL, but let's just specifically focus on the Broncos here. Back in 2015, the Broncos had Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware already on the roster, and they went out and they traded up to go get Shane Ray, another elite pass rusher, not quite as elite as this Chase Young kid is.
Nowhere near.
Nowhere near. But we've already seen it with John Elway. We've already seen it where he had Von Miller on one side, DeMarcus Ware on the other side, and he values that pass rush so much that he went out and he did trade up to go get Shane Ray. And now that is kind of a different situation. Shane Ray was projected as a top 5-10 pick, something like that, in 2015, and then he fell because he had the marijuana issue. And the Broncos never had an opportunity. They never thought that they would have the opportunity to actually go and draft Shane Ray. And as he kept falling, the opportunity kept knocking for John Elway to go up and get another premium pass rusher. Now, Shane Ray didn't turn out, but this Chase Young kid, he looks like a surefire lock, Eric, don't you think?
I hate doing that, oh yeah, this guy's a lock to be something great, but like the for sure thing just isn't my game. But with Chase Young, he's probably the prospect that would be closest to it. And as much as I hate saying it, like, he looks like a sure thing. I mean, that's how good he looks. The fact that it is making me say that he looks like a sure thing. And just quickly to highlight your point about going after and how Denver did it with Shane Ray and everything like that, there's a lot of similarities between the Broncos then and the Broncos now when they went and traded up for Shane Ray. I mean, granted, yes, as you mentioned, he was projected as a top 10 pick and fell, but look at the age of DeMarcus Ware. They just brought DeMarcus Ware, and he was 33 years old, I think, that year. Von Miller, he's going to be 31 after this year, so a couple years younger. Bradley Chubb, he's going to be a couple years younger than where Von Miller was, but not much younger. I mean, so there's similarities there with how the Broncos roster is built already with them. I mean, but yes, as the biggest thing is, as you denoted, is that one of them they traded up for to get in the 20s, whereas with Chase Young that's a top 5 pick. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, unless he comes out and kills a dog or beats a woman or something like that, and not trying. Those are all very serious issues. It's going to take some. Basically, the point is that it's going to take something very drastic for him to hurt his draft stock because of him being that good. The whole thing about him being suspended for 2 games isn't going to hurt his draft stock at all. It's going to take something severe. It's going to take something that's major and something that could potentially even put him getting drafted at all at risk. So, just don't see that happening.
No, I don't see it happening either. I'm in love with Chase Young. I really am. He's, as I said earlier, as a Heisman prospect, as a defensive player, that doesn't happen. Not often, anyways. Usually you got quarterbacks, running backs, the guys that are toting the rock all the time. Like that, those are your Heisman candidates. Chase Young is a Heisman candidate this year. Like that speaks to how effective this guy is and what kind of a player that he is going to be. At least that he could be moving forward at the NFL level. Now, in my personal opinion, talking specifically about drafting Chase Young at number 5 overall, for that to happen, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Eric. You can never have too many pass rushers. You can never, if you have an opportunity to take the best player in the draft at number 5 overall, you have to at least consider it. Now, I understand that. I get that. But to me, that would be not necessarily a waste of your draft capital, but you'd have to be really hard pressed. That would be, Burrow goes number 1 overall. Tristan Wirfs and Andrew Thomas are already off the board as well. And now you're sitting between 3 elite defensive prospects or a wide receiver. And Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, whatever your flavor would be. Now, with Chase Young, you do have already Von Miller and the expense that you have with him. You already have invested a top 5 pick with Bradley Chubb. Bringing in another top 5 pick in Chase Young, that would be just a little bit hard for me to swallow. I like Derek Brown a lot. I like Jeffrey Okudah a lot. But it is something to completely consider. And again, as the best player in the draft at any position, you would be an idiot to not even think about it. It's just the way that the team is built up right now. There are so many other needs. And yes, moving forward, quit being myopic about it, as our colleague Nick Kendall would say. there's a need moving forward, and there is a depth issue with the Broncos as far as the pass rush goes. And in 2020, if you have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and Chase Young as your top 3 pass rushers, you could do far, 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 far worse than that. And we're actually kind of seeing it right now with the Denver Broncos. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for us today. We're going to wrap it up here. Thank you all once again for joining us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can follow us both on Twitter by finding me at Sanderson MHH and for Eric at Erick Trickel. Also, be sure to follow at Mile High Huddle. Set up your notifications for instant updates on your Denver Broncos. Each and every story published on the Huddle website is posted immediately on our Twitter handle, so you guys have instant access right at your fingertips. You guys can also like Mile High Huddle's Facebook page as well. We love and appreciate all of your guys' support, and if it weren't for you all, we wouldn't be able to do what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos. So until next time, Broncos country, you guys stay safe, take care, and have a good one.